Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Ian Jackson. We warmly welcome the family of Chief Petty Officer Stores, Lewis Nicholas Sampson, whose story will be read shortly. We acknowledge the members of the Naval Association of Australia. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their life for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Chief Petty Officer Stores Lewis Nicholas Sampson. Known to his friends and family as Sam, Lewis Sampson was born on the 30th of September 1907 in Adelaide, the eldest child of Nicholas and Olive Sampson. As a young boy, Lewis lived on the family's small farm in Crystal Brook, near Port Pirie. The family later moved to Gawler and then to Port Adelaide, where Lewis and his younger brothers attended Port Adelaide Public School. Lewis was working as a newspaper employee when he enlisted in the Royal Australian Navy on the 3rd of May 1922. He was 15 years old. His brothers, Frederick and Wallace, later joined the Navy as well. Lewis Sampson joined the boys' training ship HMAS Tingara, moored in Rose Bay, Sydney. He was there for a year before being transferred to the supply branch and becoming a victualling boy. He then served in the light cruiser HMAS Brisbane 1. For the rest of the 1920s, Sampson's postings alternated between HMAS Cerberus, the Navy's training establishment, 70 kilometres south of Melbourne, and the light cruiser HMAS Adelaide. In 1930, he served on the staff of the RAN College at Jervis Bay on the New South Wales south coast. When the college was forced to close, he was involved in the transfer of its stores and accounts to Cerberus before being posted to the heavy cruiser HMAS Canberra. He was there for about 2 years before returning to Cerberus. On the 8th of January 1935, Sampson married Mary Agnes Murphy at St. Michael's Church in Nowra. Over the next 3 years, 3 children were born to the couple: John, Frances, and Helen. Sampson returned to Brisbane's company in 1935 and sailed with the aged cruiser to Britain, where it would be scrapped. When Brisbane's company was paid off in Britain, Sampson and others joined the commissioning company of Sydney, a modified Leander-class light cruiser. Sydney was armed with 8 6-inch guns and was a pride of the Royal Australian Navy, RAN. After a further period at Cerberus and a brief posting to the seaplane tender HMAS Albatross, Sampson returned to Sydney in July 1938. Following the outbreak of the Second World War, Sydney was one of several Australian ships sent to the Mediterranean. It demonstrated its fighting prowess, sinking the Italian cruiser Bartolomeo Colonnini in the Battle of Cape Spada on the 19th of July 1940. Returning home to Australia in 1941, Sydney received a hero's welcome. Sampson was also an accomplished sketch artist. During Sydney's visit to Geraldton, Western Australia, in mid-October 1941, he produced a chalk drawing of Sydney, which was presented to the Sergeant's Mess at the Royal Australian Air Force Station. The sketch was captioned, "Good luck to the Airboys," and was signed by 14 of Sydney's petty officers, including Sampson. On the 19th of November, Sydney was steaming back to Fremantle after escorting a troop ship part of the way to Singapore. At about 4 p.m, the cruiser spotted a suspicious merchant ship and decided to investigate. By 5:30 p.m, Sydney had drawn alongside the vessel, which suddenly revealed its true identity as a German raider. Hoisting the German naval ensign, Cormoran fired its guns and torpedoes. The first salvo slammed into Sydney's bridge. The Australian cruiser returned fire, but the raider's second and third salvos again hit Sydney's bridge and amidships. Its 3 main turrets were soon out of action, but a fourth kept firing fast and accurate fire that hit Cormoran's funnel and engine room. Sydney was hit by a torpedo between turrets. Mortally damaged in a blaze, Sydney turned away from the raider, continuing to fight using its secondary armament and torpedoes. Cormoran was also burning. At 6:25 p.m, its captain gave the order to abandon ship. As the German sailors evacuated their stricken vessel, they watched the Australian cruiser, now but a distant glow on the horizon, disappear into the night. By midnight, Sydney was gone, lost with all 645 hands, including Sampson. He was 34 years old. Lewis Sampson is commemorated at the Plymouth Naval Memorial in Britain. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour to your right, along with around more than 40,000 others from the Second World War. His photograph is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of the service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Chief Petty Officer Stores Lewis Nicholas Sampson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea. No flowers lie at their heads. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast set on the ocean bed. They shall not grow old, as we who are left shall grow old. The years shall not weary them, or the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.